Tuesday, December the 11th, 2012, and you are listening to the Giant Hunkcast. I'm your main hunk, Ryan Davis. Joining me, panel of hunks, Mr. Bradley Shoemaker.
Reporting for duty.
Mr. Vinny Caravella.
I'm on that hunk.
You're hunked up. Jeff Gerstmann.
I'm straight off the streets.
That's how it is, man.
That's right.
Patrick Klepek.
Honk, honk.
How you doing, man? Sound like you just had a full weekend of nothing but hunking. It's bad for your throat. Just tear that shit up.
It's 2-for-1 deal.
You can't pass that up. How you guys doing?
All right.
Fantastic.
Yeah?
Got a headache.
Yeah, me too.
A little bit. I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. By the end of this, I might not be able to talk. I don't know.
Right.
My throat's
Great.
acting up in a
Only
kind of
got
weird way.
72 more hours of podcasting to go.
Yeah. So this will be good.
Yes, this is just the first of many podcasts this week. For those who follow us on the site, we're mounting up for our Game of the Year feature, which will run at the end of the month, but we're producing the shit out of it this week.
I follow you on foot.
Or at least starting this week, and then it'll go into next week as well. So we are kind of a little preoccupied with that stuff, but still got time for a regular old giant bombcast. So let's do this thing. Brad Shoemaker.
Hi.
How was your weekend, man?
Look at it sounded like.
So you finished
Speechless.
Mass Effect 3. You did the impossible
Did I?
or the improbable.
Did it really happen?
It finished you.
I don't know. I don't know if it actually
If
happened.
you watch this documentary I produced, you'll see that it was actually finishing you the whole time.
You were the one who was indoctrinated.
That's why everybody hates the ending.
The whole thing was just a fairy tale,
Yeah.
bedtime story.
Exactly.
Everyone was
you're
pissed
saying.
because they were waiting for you to finish it because
Yeah.
they knew it wasn't going to be over until
Now
you were done.
tell
with it.
me
another
done.
tale of the shoemaker.
Don't worry, there are more tales of the
Buzz
Shoemaker.
Aldrin, you deserved better.
Is that who that was?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It sounds fake.
I-
It is some of the worst. It is
Makes
terrible.
me.
Is-
I don't.
It is god
Like,
awful.
it's awesome.
It is embarrassing.
It's like awesome. Like, dude, yeah, you got Buzz Aldrin to appear in your space thing.
Yeah.
Why?
It's maybe like, because he was in space.
Sure. Okay.
He knows
know?
about it.
He was there.
Do you think there was a moment when, once he got in front of the microphone and they were like, "Oh no,
Like, oh,
what are we going to do? Not put Buzz Aldrin in the
We should
game?"
probably, like, can we get, like, a voice coach? Is there, like, an astronaut voice coach that we could get?
Yes.
No? That doesn't exist? All right, well, just
About a regular voice.
one take, done. That stuff, yeah. Oof.
Ah. What else?
So, Brad, now that
Yeah.
you've seen it,
That's what that was the ending that everyone was so mad about, was Buzz Aldrin.
I don't know where to start.
so I think you had
There are so many different things you could say about
part of it.
this.
I feel is you had a different experience than all of us have had, and than I think most people had. In that you had Leviathan, that DLC that got released,
and the extended. Yeah, I think that has to be the crux of any discussion about me playing that game.
Sure.
Is that I had an experience with that probably very few people have had.
because you
I
had
would
both
think.
from Ashes,
Yeah.
which was the Prothean DLC that came out
So,
like
so
day
I
and
guess
date.
I guess anybody could have had that day one.
Yeah.
Or was that a week or two after?
Nope.
No,
that was
day
day
one.
one.
Okay.
So I had that. That was in mine. Vinny, I think that was in yours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not,
I
because
did.
I was playing it prior to day one.
Right.
And then when did Leviathan come out?
That was this summer.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
only-
months afterwards.
So it's not like
3 months
anyone
ago?
reasonably could have just been like, "Well, I'll just
Right.
wait a couple
Yeah,
weeks."
yeah.
So the extended cut came out 3 months later, I think.
Yeah, that was like right after around E3.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then yeah, Leviathan's only like 2-3 months old.
So you have.
But you had both. You had both the extended ending
Yeah.
and Leviathan.
Leviathan.
Although it sounds like Leviathan potentially had more of an impact.
Game changing. Like required viewing.
Do you
Like-
think so?
like inconceivable that it's not in the game already.
Like without saying like what goes down in it, do you think that people
Can we-
who
can we-
have
can-
played?
Can we say what goes down at the end of the game though? It's been long enough. Let's just. we
Yeah,
have
I
to.
feel like if we're gonna have this
all-
conversation, let's just have this
We have
conversation.
all played the game. We just need to talk about it.
Yeah,
We're
that's
we're
we don't.
going to-
If you folks at home get spoiled, we don't care. It's only that Brad is not going to get spoiled. That's interesting
They
here.
can turn the podcast off. I don't have the luxury of leaving the room.
All right.
We're going to spoil the end of Mass
Well, I mean,
Effect
I
3.
think is it necessary?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So tune out now.
Come back in like 5 minutes.
Well, probably like 30.
So, what was your question about it?
Well, I just want to know like
Hey man, what'd you think?
not that, but about
About
Leviathan
Leviathan, yeah.
specifically. Like
Right.
you say that. I guess my question is, could any of us go back and play Leviathan and have that still have any impact? Like, obviously, having it be in line with the rest of the, your missions and your story, like that is going to make it feel like a whole thing a lot more easily than trying to patch it in afterwards.
Well, Vinny had that exact experience.
That's true. I did.
He's the test case.
Okay, so Vinny, you did play through Leviathan after the fact.
Yes.
What was your thought on it?
I thought it's a cool piece of DLC.
Yeah.
I don't know if it wraps everything up in like a nice little neat bow, little package. I think
But it sounds like having the knowledge of Leviathan before you get to the end makes what happens in the end, I don't know, Brad, more
It seems like
palatable?
it signals the Deus Ex Machina, which is still a Deus Ex Machina in terms of how the plot device they use, but it seems like they at least signal it in Leviathan, right?
I don't know if you can use that label anymore because the second that the Star Kid walked up to me, I knew exactly what it was.
See, having played
that term implies that it's completely out of nowhere and comes in. And I mean, it still shows up and kind of rescues everything through essentially magic, but it's no longer a complete mystery what it is.
So going back and playing Leviathan after I'd beat the game, those pieces did not arrange themselves in that kind of order. I did not then think that the Star Child was a product of that DLC because I had seen him with that DLC extracted.
Right. Yeah.
And it didn't.
It's like them retconning and then selling you here, we fixed the story. You should probably give us some money for it.
Well, they did it twice, basically.
Well, at least it was free the first time.
Right. But also, I think the parts that you're putting together, Brad, are from having that all in context.
Right.
And you're kind of like, oh, this makes sense. These pieces come together and this happened. Whereas to me, without that, it was like, where the fuck? Okay, well, I'm going to come to my conclusions about where this kid came from.
Did it just come out as just like, here's some shit they made up to try to backpedal?
No, not even. I didn't even
what?
connect them. Like playing through the game, that the kid or whatever. I guess if we're talking explicitly about it, was like a product of the AI. Was like the Reaper AI had gained sentience or whatever, and like this was the kind of Geth.
Well, the kid is a precursor to the Reapers.
Right, but like when I played it, for me, the kid seemed like he was ascension of like that.
To me, that
Reaper
just seemed
AI.
like that they had to present because there's even lines to this effect that like
Lines
in
effect.
order to communicate with Shepard, they have to present him with a form that seems familiar to him.
Right, but it's the Reaper. It's always the Reapers, right? It's always like the Reaper AI or whatever,
Or
it is.
whatever the
intelligence is.
intelligence
the
is
like
in
Grandmaster
the-
controller or whatever is doing whatever.
in the catalyst or whatever in the fucking
Crucible.
right.
So like then going back to the Leviathan stuff, where if you play through that like Brad did, it sounds like then you're introduced to this kid,
But not the kid. They
or the construct or the.
To step back a second, Leviathan is nothing short of the most profound info dump in the history of Mass Effect. Like, it is in the space of 20 minutes, you learn where the Reapers came from, like why and how they're doing what they're doing.
I don't know who to be mad about
What?
with
Right.
this.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it is
Like
simultaneously, I guess, fascinating in your playthrough that you learn all this, and also like the most insulting thing I have ever heard about video game storytelling for the conclusion of an epic story that they go
Years
back
in
and
the making.
that they go back and add that. Am I mad at EA because it was a business construct that they chose to put it in DLC? Am I mad at BioWare because they separated it off? Like it's like they're spitting in my face.
Or mad at BioWare because
it's fucking insulting. It's infuriating.
Instead of fucking using the DLC to craft like new adventures, instead it was a bunch of people going back and fixing their mess.
They continue building
fixing
the legend
someone
through
else's
downloadable
mess.
content.
Yeah. Continue building the legend of who fucking cares.
And it's too bad because it sounds cool. Like in Brad's like magical playthrough that no one else is going to have. Like it's
So I finished the game. Okay, so I
that shit is non-canon. Fuck them.
I played
Yes,
through
They don't
I'm
get
with
to
you.
do this.
I played through Leviathan Saturday morning and then finished the game that afternoon. So like it was a very logical progression of
Right.
I was pretty close to the end of the game. I got those jaw-dropping revelations
Like I think,
and then kind of moved into the end game.
I like
It flowed really well.
Having played Leviathan afterward, I still think it's an awesome piece of content on its own. Like even though I didn't make those connections that Brad did, like just learning about that kind of history and lore,
Right.
I wouldn't be as insulted as you are, Patrick. Like it almost feels like an appendix or something like that. Of like
an appendix that makes the ending make sense.
Well, like for me, it didn't. Like
Okay.
for me, like I didn't put those pieces together.
Right.
It was like when talking to Brad this morning when he was like, "Oh yeah, this is clearly a follow up to that conversation you have in Leviathan. I was like, oh, really? Like that?
So you viewed it more like when you read like like the Lord of the Rings or like what's that, the Silmarillion?
Yeah,
it's like hey, this is some stuff that happened
yes.
that makes all of this kind of make more sense, but you don't really need it for the story we're telling.
Yeah, that's
and it just
how I
like the
look
way
at it.
Brad makes it sound makes it like that's not true.
I mean, if you
like,
want
this is
answers to those questions,
which is the whole reason you're playing this game.
well,
Yeah. At some
does
point,
it bother
like,
you guys not knowing where that Star Kid comes from?
Yes, it was like it's not the only reason that ending was troubling.
There are about,
that didn't
there are
bother
about
me.
8 different
But
problems.
it's the
like
beginning
where
of
he
it.
came from didn't bother me. It was that he was used as a constant device through those dream sequences and stuff. That was the stuff. I thought those dream sequences were way worse than anything that happened in the ending.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think they really had a place in a Mass Effect game.
It was fucking lame.
But
like, it was just fucking lame.
They were also so short that it didn't really bother, and then so infrequent that they just didn't bother
Whatever,
me
man.
that
If you're
much.
indoctrinated, that's what you see.
It begins in the dreams.
Okay. Yeah.
Just got to get with it.
I don't know. I mean, they weren't completely out of character for the kind of Shepard that I played, which was a full Paragon.
I mean, that's what I played too, but that didn't feel in place at all to me. Like, think about the number of people he has witnessed dying over the course of this.
Yeah, sure.
To all of a sudden be like, oh, that's the one that really got me. Fuck you.
Well,
Like, had that
kid
been-
can embody all the others.
Had that been
it's
like
not-
scenes of Earth or like different parts of Earth like falling apart, I could have bought that more than just this one kid somehow got under Shepard's skin.
Or tie it into his or Shepard's story more personally. Like make there be a relationship there to matter for like when that character goes away that it has some impact. Have it be related to him somewhere. We don't have any knowledge of Shepard's. Well, I guess you have like your origin story that you make up when you first create Shepard. So.
Right, but they never really expand on that stuff.
No, but it can't. I mean, when you first start the very first Mass Effect, there's some talk of that stuff, but like beyond that intro 3 fucking games ago.
So I will say the thing that Leviathan, having played it, does set up for the end of the game, which is maybe a little bit more to your point, Patrick, of like the storytelling part. It makes the end of the game seem a little more inevitable than just like all of this came down. Like, why don't we just fast forward to these last 3 decisions I have to make? And it seems like nothing I did mattered before that. Leviathan does seem like that is the inevitable conclusion to this story, that you are going to have to
make these like decisions.
Make
these...
a big choice about the fate of the universe as it pertains to the cycle. Like,
so does the I mean, I'll go back and play this at some point because I'd like to see it like within context. But like, do they make any? One of the reasons I had trouble with the ending was that even though the relationship between organics and synthetics is touched upon a lot in the game or through the
like
series,
one of the major themes.
But the choices they have you make don't feel like those were a major theme enough of the game that I was going to have to like eliminate like a whole race of people as a result. Like I was like, oh, I get it. This is part of general Mass Effect themes and like where this universe is going. But it didn't feel like that was the end game of this universe. And then suddenly it is the end game of this universe. And I don't feel like that was communicated. Was that touched upon in the DLC at all? Like about the relationship between synthetics?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. See, I think that itself would have put that ending in a better context for me.
That whole DLC is setting up that conflict. Is basically like, this is part of the cycle, and this is what you guys are dealing with now. It has been going on forever.
So I felt like when you deal with the whole Geth thing, that was me putting that question to rest.
Right.
And then they bring it up again. I was like, well, no, we already did this.
Yeah, but not everybody sees it that way.
You mean in the universe or like fans?
If you want to get broadly philosophical, I mean, that piece that you created is like, what, a week old? I think the counter argument is how long will it last, Is it the natural order of things?
No peace for Reapers.
For these things to always swing back around to chaos and conflict. So,
I guess Starchild did not make a compelling enough argument for me.
And Shepard doesn't either, or Shepard doesn't make the argument you're talking about either.
Right.
Same time, he's about to die, and everybody is dying around him. I feel like he just kind of, But, so Leviathan is one thing. I really like what it did to enrich the fiction and stuff, but it is only, one part of the puzzle. The other thing is...
Omega.
Yeah, right. That really helps. The jaw-dropping moment of realization for me was going back and looking at what the actual original ending was, or endings, and comparing that against the extended cut, and going, "Holy fucking shit!" They added
because
so
that stuff didn't bother
much.
me at all. Like I was fine with
the
the lack of, I guess, resolution of what happened to the galaxy and stuff like that. I felt like I had my finality, and I moved on.
But it adds things like you get a fully loaded dialogue wheel with the kid after you install the extended cut. and then some. It's like the whole wheel is full of choices, and then when you go through those, like 2 more appear. Like it is a lot of extra context about what it is, why it's doing what it's doing, what the choices are about. I still think the choices are kind of terrible. Like in a broadly thematic kind of sense, I feel like the resolution of the game is more or less acceptable, but like the instrument of its telling is fucking awful.
It's really hokey.
It's like, I mean, the whole rainbow colored, like, and especially the way it's presented, it comes down to it's like, let's see what ending's behind door number 2.
And
like,
it's just so. And the first time that it actually dropped me out of conversation, and as if to like say, okay, now go.
Right.
I had no idea what. Like, wait a minute. What am I doing? Where am I supposed to go? What, Like it was just this really jarring moment.
Right. Like I had to like there should have been little Call of Duty style like text labels hovering over each one, because I was like, wait, which one do I go in if I want to destroy everything? I had to like think back to
which one did Anderson go in.
So that was weird because I think there was some subtle psychological bias there toward the one I saw Anderson doing in the little dream sequence.
He's a soldier.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It's like that choice is red, so it must be the bad guy thing. But Anderson was doing it.
Anderson was indoctrinated.
And then they showed the elusive man doing the other one, but that one's blue. Like, I don't know what to believe. Now I want to know what choice you guys made.
I did all of them, but my first choice was, I think it was merge.
Synthesis.
Yeah.
I love how if you go on the internet, like, these things are just referred to in single term, capitalized. Like, there's synthesis, there's control, there's destroy, and there's reject. Like, those are the endings. People have talked about this game so much.
Reject is only introduced in the extended edition.
People have talked about this stuff so much that they have all been given proper names now, and that's just how they're known. Like, so it's crazy.
I went with destroy.
So destroy gets rid of all AI, right? All
destroy. Like, so they take dialogue out with the extended cut. In the original version, they stress like this will kill all the Geth.
Yeah,
and that line disappears from the extended cut.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Yeah, it will not discriminate any synthetic life form. Edie, Geth, everything, Reaper's gone.
In the extended cut.
And destroy. No, it's the same either way. They just don't stress it in the same way.
Right, and then synthesize is you make this new race.
That's the stupid
magic wand.
And
you have to have like a number above, like one of your numbers has to be really high for that to even be an option.
Is that how it is?
Right, so I didn't even get the synthesize as an option.
But they don't necessarily like point out that that's a choice, right? It's you just have to figure out that you can run up the middle.
Oh,
because I think I stumbled onto that by accident because I was just kind of walking around the area, not sure what to do.
I thought they say like, there's a third choice, like you can.
Yeah, I don't know how they handle it. I don't know how they handle it pre-extended cut, but they fully differentiate it as a third choice. Absolutely.
So what happens if you reject?
I think they talk about it as a third choice. I just don't know that they necessarily show you how to pick it. I don't remember.
I don't know.
Either way.
So what happens if you shoot the kid or
that triggers the rejection?
And what happens there?
It's it's shorter than the others, but he basically freaks out and his voice turns into like Reaper filter voice.
Ah,
yeah, it's scary.
And it's did you do it?
Yeah.
And he's just like, so be it.
And the war
cycle
continues.
will continue.
So that one happens if you attack him or if you just hang out for too long.
Yeah, if you just sit there. Oh, you can also tell him no. In the dialogue,
you can tell him. You can attack him, or you can just hang out. I think I got it because I was like hanging out trying to figure out what option I wanted to take next because I was just going through all of the extended cut.
So
endings.
He basically stamps his feet and talks all scary and says, "So be it," and it fades out or whatever, and then you get a scene of one of Liara's time capsules that she talked about making on some planet.
Oh, so they go through the harvest.
Yeah, like the harvest occurs, and you see her saying, like, hopefully we didn't die for nothing.
Oh, I did see that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That ending, actually, I didn't think that ending was bad. I liked the little, little bunker because it feels like the ending of like, okay, this cycle will renew again.
Right. And then you get
in some thousands of years.
You get a different variation on the Buzz Aldrin scene where it's 2 aliens in the next cycle. Basically saying like did all that really happen? And like, yeah, they died, so we didn't have to. Or, they went through hell, so we didn't have to.
But it looks the same. Like it
does look the same.
Like it's just that same shot, just different voiceover.
So the bad part about Destroy is,
did they get Buzz back for that?
No, it's like a female adult voice.
So the bad part about Destroy is you'll kill all your friendly AIs indiscriminately. Like, I'm alive, Edie's alive, these things are alive. The bad part about Control is that you're rolling the dice.
So I went with Destroy in kind of a hasty fashion because I could think of nothing but the blinding drive to fucking get rid of the Reapers now.
Okay.
It was like, no chances, I'm not fucking around with this.
Yeah.
Collateral damage, whatever. But yeah, Control seems like it should be So I find green and red. Let's just talk about my colors. I find green and red to be kind of morally unconscionable, right? Because destroy, you are ending billions of sapient beings, even if they're they're machines.
Yeah.
Green, you're foisting like
This
cyborgness on everything that is alive. Like
Yeah.
like
Wait. What's? I'm sorry. What's green?
green is synthesis.
Okay.
It's
And what's
like you
control
are
blue?
making you're like why
Yeah.
like how are you going and making this one decision for everything that is alive?
Because it's the only way, man.
This child told me I had to,
Yeah.
so
Like
too
the idea-
bad.
Because it's the fucking Matrix.
It's
Yeah.
the singularity, man.
The
We'll be
idea-
computer people.
I'm
the
ending
idea
the
on its
cycle.
face. The idea on its face, I think, is grotesque, and then the cutscene that they use to depict it is fucking so stupid. I couldn't even believe it. Like
Well,
cyborg plants,
Yeah.
and everybody with like glowing green eyes.
They're
like,
halfway
no,
It's,
there.
it's, it's a pretty corny way for them
It's
to,
terrible. I
to
mean-
convey, like, hey, you're all computer people now.
Yeah.
Right.
It would have been way cooler if Joker were just like jumps up in the air and has like robot thrusters on his legs and be like, I made the right choice.
I would have wanted it to just not look anything like the fact that they just like took the existing character models and just slapped some circuit board textures on
Yeah.
them. Like, if you're gonna go that route, like, make it look like this true, like, merging of these things.
So
'Cause
the more I've thought about it, the more I've looked at the way these endings were made originally and how it got amended. The way this game was originally due out like 5 months before it actually shipped has made me think this game just got EA'd to death. Like everything about it feels so rushed at the end.
So would you have
Down to the fact that they used the same cutscene 3 times and just changed one primary color.
would you have liked them to have made that choice for you based
Yes.
on like your history?
I think that would have eliminated a lot of the weird reaction. Is that because when you have to make the choice, you're like, these are not real choices. Whereas if this was like, this is the culmination of everything you've done as a
Right.
result of what you've done, these are the consequences to the world.
Here's what I've
I think that
Right.
then BioWare could have exercised a little more authorship over the ending, and people might have lived with it a little bit more. I mean, they didn't, so
right.
I could maybe see that.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have that, like basically the kid telling you, like, hey, if you're the example of humanity, this is the conclusion I've come to about humanity. Remember when you stopped the genophage? Still. Remember when you
Right.
kissed
It's instead of
Liara?
being like,
Still.
the end of Q's trial, and he shows up and says, all right, we've judged humanity. Here's the deal.
Right. And then, like, you then at that point, you have, so here's my conclusion, here's what I'm going to do, and then you could pull a gun on the kid. And
yeah, like
reject
you
it.
accept it or reject it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a more interesting way to handle it.
I kind of like your idea. I think the one place where you can still apply the Deus Ex Machina label here is in the completely arbitrary nature of those 3 choices. It's like, why does stepping into this green energy beam suddenly allow you to like instantly change the nature
Because
of all
Shepard
life
is the
everywhere?
one.
You're a key fitting into
His
a lock.
DNA, yeah, exactly. It fits into he jumps into the beam.
I
It's like
don't-
Tron.
He doesn't strike me as like the typical chosen one sort of figure, because I feel like that requires a certain degree of preordainment.
That's
you know?
what
It's like
makes
you
it
have to
extra
be-
shitty, because it seems like they just decide at
be
some
a-
point that
right,
like
well-
the story like made them
I think it's
I
only
mean, forced their hand.
I think it's only Shepard because he's the one that's there, right? What I mean is that to be a true chosen one, you have to have been prophesized to be the one
The shepherd.
before you became the one, you know? Whereas, like, Shepard is the shepherd because of what because he accomplishes the impossible, right? Like, he's just a man.
But does he accomplish the impossible because he's the chosen one?
I don't know.
Well,
But I think, like, he is the guy who makes the space magic happen because he's the one who's there, right? Like, if it hadn't been him...
Yeah, I
would it
buy
been
that. I mean,
somebody
like,
else?
yeah, it's not. This was not preordained. Even if it becomes an all story in the sense that you're the guy that did it, but it's
Right.
not like it was written down
But
into an alien
like,
tablet.
I wouldn't be surprised if you asked them what they thought about the past cycles in this universe. It's like, oh yeah, it always pretty much came down to one guy, and he got a little bit further each time, and in this time you make it.
Just like The Matrix.
End, the end. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
you're the one who made it into the White Room.
Totally.
I don't know. I saw a lot of complaints about the Crucible as a, spaceship-sized MacGuffin or whatever.
Giant microphone.
Kind of, yeah, sure. But
I mean, all these kinds of stories have to have those to some
not only
extent.
that, not only that, because how like the Reapers have been established as so all powerful that like how else are you going to possibly deal with them?
Yeah, I think that
but-
I think that
but-
the ending got way too much.
I mean,
Emphasis.
I actually liked the idea of this. Like this device has been, they've like secretly passed these plans.
Yeah,
down from
exactly.
cycle to
Yeah,
cycle.
that's
and they get
cool.
a little bit closer to building it each time.
Like,
Like,
that
I
feels-
never really had a
that
problem.
feels
with
like
that.
Mass Effect. You know?
Yeah.
It's like here is a pretty good hard justification for why this thing exists.
But yeah, like like I said, for me, it was stuff like the kid showing up in those dream sequences, and it was just the way the story wrapped up along the way.
Yeah.
You know, by the time I got to the ending, the ending didn't matter.
I wasn't angry. I was bummed.
Yeah.
And I'm angry now that I know how it played out for you. Like I've been through a whole cycle. Where I was,
like that's
now I'm
really
angry.
extra shitty. But you know, but I don't think that would change what my problems with that game were. And you know, I still think it's a really good game. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, I mean, it's mechanically exciting, and it's a lot of whether they do it justice or not. Being able to go back and see those characters and tie up some of those loose ends. You know, like the scene with Garrus, just fucking kicking it. Sure. It's great. They're fucking awesome.
Like the way Morden wraps up.
Yeah,
like that sequence with the elevator, like is unbelievable.
Drunk Tally is probably one of the best things in the game.
Yeah,
Hungover Ashley was also really good. There's some really good, funny character stuff.
Good stuff. You know, like with those characters that you've become attached to over the course of the 3 games. Yeah. And I guess like that's why that's why I feel like I and a lot of other people are ready to lash out at this, because it has been so awesome, along the way, that to get to this point, it's just like, man, fuck you guys. Like, how do you blow this? And you blow it they blow it in like such a depressing way to build for years, and just the hundreds of people that have touched Mass Effect along the way to get to the 3rd one and start to wrap up this trilogy, and just fuck it up so bad.
At the same time, I have to applaud their audacity to even try.
I wonder, you know, like when they first started this, could they have known what they were actually getting?
I don't think you could have. You
can
have, you know, I'd love to read a book about like just the development of these.
And I bet
games.
the different developers, you know, as people kind of would roll off that project and go on to other stuff, or where they leave the company or whatever. At some point, like if you're the guy who didn't work on 1 and 2 and you're working on 3, you're probably like, shit, I have to account for all this stuff that like didn't happen on my watch.
Right.
And I think, you know, that probably that and kind of the whatever the sales expectations that EA must have had, because they pushed pretty hard the notion that like, oh, you can totally just play Mass Effect 3. It's a great place to start.
You have to wonder what the life would have been like had Microsoft continued to been the publisher of that series, and it just got to live out its life as, you know, what it sold probably would have made Microsoft pretty happy, as opposed to what EA needed.
Is the company that let them make the first game what it was,
which is still my favorite game. Mass Effect 1 is my favorite of the 3
series. Yes. In other ways, it's the worst game of the series.
Mass Effect 2 is the best.
I think that the tone and the presentation.
You're right, but it
is
strikes the best balance between the two.
You're right.
Like the gameplay gets to where it needs to be.
Gameplay in 1 is pretty shoddy.
There's no more Mako shit.
Yeah.
They solved those problems.
I love the story of 1.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, they set up that universe. Yeah, absolutely.
The moment you meet the first Reaper is like absolutely one of the best moments this generation.
But I like collecting the hit squad in 2. I thought that stuff was really fun. Like
that stuff is awesome.
Going to get this like special forces team, and like
the loyalty missions.
But they put such a better face on the villain in the first one by having
I don't know,
like having Saren as like having this actually person you're going after, as opposed to this
face for it.
Yeah, but 2 has the elusive man that is like kind of
the elusive man's. Well, the elusive man's great because he is that super gray, like, this guy's dicey as fuck, but I might need him on my side.
Right, and I thought 2 was great because you're kind of like, all right, here you are, Shepard, all the money in the world, like, here's the best toys. You've got your own cabin now in the Normandy.
But I liked
have a good time in the galaxy.
I liked the conversations that I had with aliens in Mass Effect 1. I felt like and again, it was the first game, so they had to do this, but I felt like I got to know kind of all of the subtle quirks of all these different alien races, just talking to people like, you know, on the Citadel and elsewhere, that they didn't do as much of in subsequent games.
It's way more Star Trek-y.
And 3 is basically intensely focused on the war effort and nothing else.
Yeah.
Like the side content in that game is paper thin.
Yeah, but for as intensely focused as it is on that, like there's also this feeling of just like we've got to get away from Earth and so we can go save Earth.
Yeah.
Let's hang out. Let's go do the side stuff. Let's go do this stuff. Like it's.
I don't know. I mean, I feel every mission objective you get in that game is in some
it's like
way
resolving these issues,
but you're just like you're walking around places
too convenient.
You're walking around a lot of places that don't feel like they are feeling the impacts of war. Like, sure, you go to places where it's straight up fucking battlegrounds and it's chaos. And when you're on the Citadel, you know, there's refugees and stuff on certain levels. But a lot of it just like, we'll just go hang out at the fucking disco with the robot ladies.
There's no sense of urgency for as dire as the Earth situation is made out to be.
Sure.
to then just be like, I'm going to traipse around the galaxy. Like it seems crazy.
I mean, they push themselves into a corner. Part of the reason people like Mass Effect is exploring the galaxy,
yeah, totally.
and you can't take that away unless you put a timer on the game or something like that. Which they try to do with the readiness.
Yeah,
and allow you to balance that out with like earning it in multiplayer or through like the iOS games. But I think that was just there's not much they could have done about that.
Well, they could have just had missions that focused just exclusively on the war efforts. If it's not directly, it is one way or another going to impact your war efforts. As it was, a lot of it just was completely detached.
Here are these N7 missions where we're going to just drop you on the multiplayer maps and you're going to fight for a while. Like that's just bad stuff.
Yeah, but I agree. But it's the high points of that game that make me like it.
Yeah,
because the highest high points in that game are as good as anything else in the series.
Come on.
The Morden's End, like really, come on.
Morden's End,
pretty well executed.
Like it's all right.
I think it's pretty good.
I don't know.
But the war effort stuff for me just felt moot by the point you're in the Crucible talking to the kid, and you're like, "Well, I got my readiness up way up there." Like,
none of it mattered.
Well, none of it mattered. Go left, right, or down the center.
I mean, again, those choices are pretty ridiculous. But as far as it winning you the war, like I don't think the impression was ever given that getting your number to a point would win the war. But like the way the Reapers have been built up as both all powerful and unknowable for the last 2.5 games, like I don't think they're not conventionally beatable.
But the whole point is, well, at least it felt to me the whole urgency was at least to try and give humanity a fighting chance against them, right?
And you do that. I mean,
it's to buy you time.
But you're right, it just buys you time to launch. This Crucible.
That's why I feel like whatever the reject solution. The reject ending should have just been like a raw, looks at your number and goes like, how's this going to go?
Right.
Like if you got your number up really high, then you'll come out of it. It won't just be here's what happened in this other cycle. Because I mean they say like you got when you build it all the way up, it's like you got a fighting chance. You're pushing them back in some key areas and this is going okay. Like you're making progress.
There's this system in place that presents the notion that there is some granularity to the level of success that you can achieve when there very clearly is not.
Yeah.
That by the time you get there,
if rejected
those
had
choices
really just been
are only those choices.
Yeah. Like fuck it, we're gonna fight, and then give you some kind of battle sequence that is a factor of your war effort, where you can win. That would have been kind of cool.
Like, what happens if your readiness is not high enough? Just more casualties on the run up to the Crucible?
Well, so I guess to hear Patrick tell, some of the endings are not even available.
Yeah, I think that cutscene that plays out, as part of the end game, as you're going down to Earth, I think some of that changes based on
the people that get off the ship are definitely altered. I think by that.
Well, but really, at the end of the day, it's about the ending. But I think the ending is I don't know if getting the synthesis ending. I don't know if that's related to readiness or if that's related to your choices in the game.
I don't know, but I do know that. Well, for one thing, the extended cut dropped the threshold for getting the good endings
lower
on the EMS. Yeah, the effective military strength. It's like 3,500 now. I 7,000. But
I think you had before you had to do all of the side missions and a little bit of the multiplayer in order to get it. Right. Now you just have to do all of the side missions or not even all of them necessarily.
That sounds right. Yeah. But there are different variations of each of the 3 endings as well. In terms of like
cutscene,
like what explode, like the scenes they show on the planet of things happening, like more things blow up and more people die if you have a lower number. But
they're all going to become robot people anyway.
That brings the other, probably maybe the craziest issue with the whole extended cut idea to light, which is that they straight up retcon like 2 specific things in the ending that everybody fucking hated. And for me, it was just my ending. It's just what happened, and I saw it and interpreted it and moved on. But then going back and hearing everybody else having a completely different experience, like I don't really know how to reconcile that. Specifically, what I'm talking about is they don't destroy the mass relays anymore,
which is crazy.
Which is crazy.
Like I didn't even know it was a thing that happened until
we talk about the amount of backpedaling they did.
I didn't even know it was a thing that happened until I went and read. So
that happens in all of them now. They just don't.
I'd have to go back and double check, but yeah. So the line of dialogue about doing this will destroy the mass relays is gone that's the Star Kid.
So you don't even get that cutscene.
You do, but it's been altered. They don't explode anymore.
They just kind of power down.
The little kind of concentric ring device that spins in the middle, like flies apart, but they don't explode. And then, depending on the ending, so ultimately I think Control is the only ending I find palatable. And I went back and did it. Just
want your Reaper army?
Well, you know what? If I hadn't been so hell-bent on just destroying Reapers and thinking, what the Elusive Man would do is obviously the wrong thing, that makes the most sense as a Paragon Shepherd, because it's self-sacrifice to ensure that every other living thing continues its life unchanged, right? So that is the thing to do. But anyway, if you pick that option, the extended cut FMV for that ending straight up shows the Reapers under Shepard's control rebuilding the mass relays. So they're even repairing that small amount of damage that they sustained. So I don't know.
I mean, that's
that's
such a dramatic state of the world, because the way it was originally, you think if they pick up anything from Mass Effect after this, it's going to be really hard for those worlds to be talking to each other, because it'll be hard to get from place to place.
And that's kind of interesting to think about how that changes the that is, if they're going to go,
it forces them into the idea that anything they would do would have to almost be a prequel at this point, because they want to show all those races and have all that stuff.
And also, I don't know how they can reconcile those different endings dramatically change the future of that entire universe. I don't know how any game could take place afterwards and be like, one of these is the one true canon. Yeah,
that's at this point they have fucked it up so bad. Who cares? Let them pick a canonical ending for whatever they want to do from here. Whatever. They've bungled this so bad.
Well, I'm just saying I can't imagine them doing that, because the amount of shit they would have to wade through to just get through the noise, I think would just be unimaginable. Whereas if you said it before, you sort of sidestep that stuff.
I don't know. I think any Mass Effect game that took place after Mass Effect 3 would deal with the same amount of shit no matter what.
Well, like I said, the Control with the extended cut basically leaves everything as it is. Everybody's still alive. The mass relays are still there. I don't know if they've come out and given some kind of statement about having done that.
No, they kind of shut up after the extended edition. I think they knew they weren't going to get anywhere, so they kind of did this. This was their declarative statement, and then they've been quiet ever since.
Yeah, I don't know.
Dumb.
Also, the Normandy is totally fine. Everybody's totally fine. That was the other thing I came to realize, is that
it seems like they strip a lot of consequence out of those endings.
Pre-extended cut, the Normandy was trashed. It crashed on that garden planet and was full of holes. It's I went back and watched the ending, and it's full of holes and burning and just completely fucked up. And the idea is, they must be stranded on that planet forever.
Right.
But then not only did they change the art so that it's not really even dinged up, but there's a scene later on where they show it rising up over the trees and flying off. So they clearly went out of their way to stress hey, they're not stuck on this planet.
Well, congratulations, Internet. You got what you wanted,
I guess. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of extra content in that new ending. So, finishing it, going in, assuming I knew what the extended cut was going to look like, there's that one montage of a bunch of still images of the crew, one after the other. And I was like, oh, that must be what they added. Everything else must be the original ending. No. But there's so much more that they changed about that thing. It's crazy. It is fucking crazy.
Yeah. See, I went through the extended endings after they patched that in, and it had been enough time between my original playthrough and that I'd missed a lot of these subtler. I figured it was okay. They are just making more explicit the things that were implied the first time around, which to me seemed like a waste of fucking time.
You practically need to watch them side by side, like I did, to really pick out all the differences.
Well, there you go. Mass Effect's over, you guys. Get ready for the next Mass Effect game.
Yeah, it's glaringly obvious at this point that I played a very different game than everybody else. And that's the experience I had with it. And, I don't know how to, I can't separate in my mind how it played out to me as I was taking it in.
Sure. No, I think that's the idea. That's the point.
So I guess, I don't know, what can we say? It's tragedy that it didn't ship like this in the first place?
I think at least that, because we can't really even have a shared conversation as it is, because it's not even just that, we all made different choices. It's that the different choices we made had different impacts depending on when we made those choices.
And have different outcomes.
And also depending on, the fact that it depends on what DLC we had, the amount of impact that can have on the end of the story.
What a joke.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's atrocious.
Yeah, it is insane.
It's just it's
the
disgusting.
definition of insanity.
You think about like the years that that they've been developing Mass Effect games, that it has been this amazing, fully realized sci-fi universe that was like worth getting excited about through those games, and that this is how it ends. This is what we're left talking about. Not that like, oh man, yeah, they put together loyalty missions and all that other stuff. Like, no, it's just this tarnished, fucked up thing.
Yeah, it's a real shame that it's a blight on the Mass Effect name.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the game as it is right now, I think, is pretty darn good with all that stuff. But I could totally see why.
I found it enjoyable at the time as well.
Totally see why
even
people
though
were upset.
I didn't think it was as good as Mass Effect 2.
It's not. It's not as good as Mass Effect 2. Or in some ways as good as the first one.
Yeah.
But it's better in some ways. The combat is
fun,
better than the other two games.
Yeah, I mean, the gameplay stuff they did is smart.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's gross.
Try to imagine how people felt about it, and the best comparison I could think of was the last time I felt like a video game betrayed me was Metal Gear Solid 2. Not the ride and shit.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't that. It was like the ultimate resolution of that game. In fact, that was the last time I felt blindsided by like a literal god from the machine, when they wheeled out all the bullshit about like the spirits of democracy were manifesting in the walls of the government buildings and shit. Like that was when I felt kind of hoodwinked. Like, I felt like, all right,
you're like, oh wait, Kojima's just out his fucking mind.
Metal Gear Solid is clearly not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And like, clearly it has gone on to mean a great deal to a lot of people.
But
to some extent, they lost me and never got me back after
with
that.
With MGS2, they made it like a proper, full-on video game that you played instead of a series of cutscenes intercut with you walking from one place to another. Like MGS1, fuck that game.
Oh, come on.
Fuck that game.
Not going down this road. We're not doing it. Not doing it.
We're not having that
not doing
conversation.
it.
Oh. It's barely a video game. It was The Walking Dead of its time.
Yeah.
Brad, you play anything else?
Fuck you.
Oh, man, I really...
Just took it out of you?
All of that ate most of my weekend, but...
It was fun watching you say, here are all the games I should be playing, but I don't think I'm going to play any.
I had like 6 games yesterday, ready to go.
Yeah.
I got up and made a pot of coffee at like 7 in the morning. I was like, all right, video game day. And then sat there reading forums and wikis and watching YouTube comparisons and fucking...
But do you feel like you have it out of your system at least?
More or less, yeah.
Now that you've expunged?
Yeah, like I fucking went down the rabbit hole of comparing the writing staff on the first game to the second game to the third game to see like who was there and who left.
Well, the key is like that one guy. What's his name?
The guy who wrote the first Mass Effect book that came out before the first game and basically architected that universe and was lead writer at BioWare for like a decade.
Yeah.
Like Knights of the Old Republic and everything.
Okay.
Lead writer on 1, co-lead writer on 2. Went to Austin to work on the Old Republic before 3.
Noticing a pattern.
Star Wars, no longer content fucking up its own storyline, has to go and fuck up other sci-fi universes.
It's like a real great idea to pull the guy who essentially built all of this fiction off right before you wrap up the trilogy.
Well, if you're looking at it from the business perspective of this Star Wars game has to come in right or we're fucked,
also,
then you'd want to put your best people on it.
And also, this Mass Effect thing is enough of a self-sustaining enterprise at this point that it'll probably be fine. And I largely think it is fine. The stuff, I understand why you feel a lot of the stuff in that game is too convenient story-wise.
Yeah.
My counter-argument is...
And I think a lot of it's just kind of lame.
My
there's some
counter-argument is
great moments, but a lot of it's just...
Well, what else should happen, though? Because this is their chance to resolve all that stuff. Like, it's either that or leave it hanging.
Yeah.
And
well, I think that if they had that...
Like leave the genophage hanging, leave the Geth core hanging.
I think
like,
it's
you're kind of damned either way.
There's
right?
I don't have a problem with that stuff, other than in the context of Earth is being ravaged by Reapers actively, and here you are traipsing around the galaxy, just doing this stuff. Obviously, they construct a good enough story where it's like, well, to get these guys on board, we have to solve all their problems. But then you were just fucking intergalactic problem solver, where you're just creating world peace.
It is a little convenient.
You probably should have just done that in Mass Effect 2.
Right. It is a little crazy. You can pull a lot of stuff off, but then again, you are the shepherd.
Yeah.
But
if
you and then it's all for naught.
If you dig into the codex, like they say, like at the rate the Reapers are going, it'll take them 10 years to depopulate the Earth. So like you've got some time, and they're constantly.
But that's not how
the way they convey it makes it seem like this Earth has 24 hours, or else this shit is over.
After every mission, you go talk
if you
to
don't
fucking
read the
Hackett.
codex, they can do whatever they want in the codex.
Yeah.
The way they convey it in the game, when you have the introductory sequence where the Reapers arrive on Earth, like Earth is fucking over in a day.
And you
Like,
were
there
just
is
flying away, going like, "This is fucked. We better get back in time."
nothing about that says that's going to take
But then
10
Anderson
years.
tells you repeatedly over the course of the game, like, oh, we realized they were targeting population centers, so everybody's moved out into the rural areas, and they're having a way harder time getting us out here.
How many more little kids need to die? Brad?
Yeah.
Like, there are hints dropped that you've got some time.
But
you
then
know?
just like,
I mean,
yes,
it's still
but that's
fucked.
counter to.
It's
I feel
still
like
fucked.
when, like Hackett or whoever is coming on and saying like, "Yeah, things are pretty grim around here,
It is
Shepard." I don't know.
certainly urgent. You're right. You're right.
What the fuck you been doing? Well, I found Bar Levon's wallet on this planet, so I'm gonna go return that to him in the Citadel.
That shit is stupid. You're right.
I found
it totally is.
this artifact, these necklaces. They've been looking for them for like 5 years, but this lady on the Citadel wanted it.
Yeah, this is artifacts that have been lost for generations. It just, it was in its box. I was running around and it just turned up.
So I'm gonna head back to the Citadel.
I'm gonna take it to those guys,
and I have
then,
to introduce myself because I only overheard the conversation.
Yeah, so I walk up and go, "I found your necklace," which is maybe a little stalkerish, but.
Why? What are you guys up to?
What's going on over there? There's this dance club. It's great.
I heard we had 10 years.
Yeah, I totally stopped doing that stuff at some point. It was just ridiculous.
I wasn't doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
I was turning in side quests on accident.
I tried to do everything I could because that's I want
a good
wanted to
universe.
try to wring everything out of it, and every little thing contributes to your number. So you're like, well, shit, I don't. Especially I was playing it before there were people even playing multiplayer, so there was that thing of like, I might have to finish this at 50%.
Sure.
I did all that shit, and then played a bunch of multiplayer because lucked out, found people online.
And that was my big problem going back for any DLC was just running around knowing that I in the end I'm doing the synthesis choice. So just everybody just running around just in the back of my mind being like, you're all going to be robot
You're going to be a
people.
robot man.
So
it's going to be awesome.
Fuck Omega.
We're all going to live
fuck
forever.
Cares? You're going to be a robot person in like a half hours. Like this isn't that big a deal.
I feel like even more so than Mass Effect 2, like the finality of the ending of Mass Effect 3 makes any DLC just seems super inconsequential.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like it might fill in some gaps of like, oh, okay, now I know a little more about this event or that event, but I still know how all this shit's going to end.
It's like, but
regardless
why?
of-
Who cares? It's over.
It doesn't
They
matter.
should have just made those things total side stories and made them seem like non-canonical legends and just call it More Tales of the Shepherd. And it's just like, did I ever tell you about the time that Shepherd was a really good race car driver? Him and Garrus were tinkering on the, it's like building dune buggies.
Just becomes this character of legend where it's,
It's just all these fables, these really moral tales about how Shepard saved everybody. But when you go in there, you see he did it his own way. He might have been a bad guy, but he got results.
it's all just Aesop's fables, but with this one character called the Shepherd.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems obvious at this point they would have been much better served with a Walking Dead style finale.
Sure.
The ending is the ending. This is the ending we're writing. Everybody's getting it, but like the particulars of it or the tone of it is different based on what you've done.
Yep.
It's
As opposed to diluting the courses of action the way they did.
in their defense, like it's a tough nut to crack.
It is. You're right.
Like one way or the other. Like they didn't handle it the best they could have.
I do think if anybody expected there to be
but I
like
feel like-
1,000 permutations on the ending based on everything you've ever done, like that's a pipe dream. Like,
But I feel like
crazy.
we all left Mass Effect 2 like saying like, man, that game was fucking amazing, but they have their fucking work cut out for them in Mass Effect 3. I think there was any illusions about like this is going to be tough to do what you guys say you're setting out to do. Like, good luck to you, but goddamn. And it's unfortunate that they didn't quite live up to those expectations. But we knew there was a good goddamn chance they weren't going to.
And like, I know it's Shepard's
We hoped.
story, and I know it's intentional that it comes down to him for this choice. But I kind of would have liked other people to be there and be like, "Wait, you're fucking out of your mind,
Hey,
dude.
where you going?
Don't go down there." And like, you may have to shoot Garrus or something like that, and be like, "This is my
Jacob's
choice."
there, and he's like, I was standing by the hospital for the last 6
God,
weeks.
dude, I hated that so much.
And I've been thinking a lot, and I don't really give a fuck what you do. So.
I found a solution. Yeah, like just or like Joker just being like, somebody being there to be like, you made it through these challenges not on your own, because all the single missions with Shepard were the worst ones. So like every time you're with people, it's all about interactions and stuff like that. I would have liked to have some Joker or anybody be like, "This is a bad idea, dude, but do what you got to do."
Right.
and then jump in that hole and then see his skin peel off as he's a robot and scream your names. It's like, Shepard, what the fuck did you do?
So you're saying take some tips from Binary Domain.
Yeah. All right, yeah. I did. Real life, really.
Basically, you're saying like he should have like pulled a grenade out instead of.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
It was kind of crazy. I went back and pulled up a bunch of forum threads from March when everybody was playing that game for the first time.
Uh-huh.
And it's wild to just click through and watch public opinion like turn.
Yeah.
Like by now the narrative is always the worst game of the year. But at the time, like people absolutely loved that game right up until they finished it.
There were people that were like,
I mean,
not
to
when
say
I gave
that
it a
people
4 out of 5, there were people just like, oh, what the fuck is wrong with you? And
Right.
they were playing it and going like, oh, he's fucking crazy. This
Right.
game's awesome.
Not to say that people
Like,
weren't
oh,
noticing
wait.
the flaws, and I mean they're definitely there.
Yeah.
Like there are fewer conversation options that bug the hell out of me because my favorite thing to do in Mass Effect is talk to people.
Right.
Instead of just upper right, upper right, upper right.
Right. Like where were the neutral options? Where were the investigate choices and stuff? But
They're in there some places.
and
Yeah,
the side
yeah.
missions are, like I said, crap. Like the Jessica Chobot thing is horrible.
I thought
The fact that you build this series around customizing your own character and bringing it across games, and then make it so that your custom face from the first game does not make it in.
Right.
What the fuck?
Like how do you?
How does that go out the door?
Did they ever fix that?
No,
I don't think they ever patched it.
I had to abandon mine. I don't know if
there
they
are
ever-
ways-
I mean, yeah, you would have been playing before they had fixed it. I just
There
figured
wa-
that would be one of the things that they would have patched. Like, oh fuck, sorry guys.
There are ways to either edit a save, or like you go back to 2, and there are ways to make it spit out that giant 25 character code that you could punch in, and it would rebuild your face. But it's like, how do you not? That is the most fundamental thing you should have gotten right. It's right up there with the Telltale issue with the Walking Dead saves. It's like this is the
thing your
hook
game does.
that this game turns on,
Yeah.
and you were not fixing it. Like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
All right, last thing, I brought up the writing staff stuff because I don't know if you guys ever saw that the original idea for like what the Reapers were about and what the ending was going to be got out there. From that, it was from when that guy was running the project and all that stuff.
Okay.
And I don't think it's as good. It potentially could have been just as bad as what actually made it in, I think.
So you're saying the proposed projected ending from the dude who worked on the first 2 games.
Well, at least, I mean, I'm sure it was a super early idea. It hadn't been fleshed out, or it would have been refined or whatever, but I think potentially it could have been received pretty poorly also. And
I think that with the way
the giant Terminator baby was also attributed to him. So
Yeah.
nobody's perfect.
that thing was okay.
I think it was pretty stupid.
That was pretty
That thing is
dumb.
really stupid.
It ran on human juice.
Mass Effect 2 is a great game, but that thing is fucking stupid.
Yeah, let us remember for a minute.
Yes,
They were
for sure.
pulping up humans to pipe into this human.
Like every bit of Mass Effect all along the way has had some caveats attached to it.
Sure. That's
So-
all sci-fi ever. There's always gonna be some
Yeah.
dumb little thing. I mean, I think the ending that they chose for this game, it's not about like the core of that ending versus this other idea for an ending or whatever.
Right.
It's just kind of how they handled it.
Yeah. It was
There's a
executed-
way to make this ending
the original,
work better.
The original execution of the ending is abysmal.
And it sounds like they have improved it a little bit.
It is vastly improved the way that I played the game.
But if you take the ending, like the core of it just being the relays are destroyed, well, in the original one,
Yeah.
and the Reapers are gone, take away all the control and destroy and synthesis, like that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like I think the consequence is like, yes, you destroyed the greatest threat to the universe. Also, now you can't talk to each other, or you have to start from scratch. Like that. That's as a core. That is a great way to end that series.
And I kind of feel like the run up to the ending got me pretty excited. Like they do nice things with the story where you're like, you're coming out of the haze and like you're kind of limping along, like kind of Metal Gear style, and like this is. With the part with I thought the part with the elusive man was a little clunky, but like
the way they
It was clunky, but like really interesting too.
it was like okay.
It was, but I feel like the at least the Paragon way that they dismiss him is just kind of unceremonious and didn't really befit the character. Like the magnitude of that guy.
Right.
Like his persona was larger than life. He seemed like a guy who could pull any string and get anything done that he wanted and couldn't be stopped.
But that's why it had to end the way it did, where this is the last string and it's the one string he couldn't pull.
You're right, and in fact, it turned out that his string was being pulled. But
Yeah.
I guess all it is for me is that
I mean, his hubris had to be
you're
His
checked.
downfall.
You're right.
Checked.
You're absolutely right. I guess it's how quickly he goes from denying that he is indoctrinated to deciding he needs to shoot himself in the head.
Yeah, it's pretty fast.
in the space of about 20 seconds. Like I didn't buy that, but if If you go the renegade option on that, you have to kill him because he tried to kill you.
Yeah.
But so that run up to that was pretty good, and like I was with him for that part. And then I thought that like sidling up with Anderson, like against the control panel, the whole like we did it, man.
That part
like,
was all right.
It was like good and emotional, emotional parts good job, soldier. Like
the way Anderson kind of quietly dies next to you, and like
and
like the look that like Shepard looks over and like he's like Anderson and like realizes he's dead and just like closes his eyes. It's just like fuck,
like all
like
good
another
stuff.
friend just died.
Yeah.
Hits that button and like he does it. The Crucible powers up and like great, end the game.
So
if
if
they'd stopped it there, that would have been.
If it had just been Crucible like releases energy field, Reapers all explode.
I think I would have.
Everybody celebrates. Like, do you think that would have been a good ending?
I think I would have been okay with it. That
Really?
means like everybody's sacrifice was for a reason. Like Anderson died for a good reason,
you're
like to
right.
get me to the Crucible thing. This all made sense instead of like me going and then making this choice for the galaxy. That's like you're all robot people.
And then what if the mass relays were like this consequence that wasn't even told to you? Like what if that was like sort of the stinger? Was that and then you lose access to the relays. I think that would have been really cool.
What it should have been, because I think the Crucible was this big mystery, right? Nobody knew what it was going to do, and if it killed the Reapers and also destroyed all the mass relays, like cutting off civilization, like you got it. That's the good with the bad, right? You got to you never knew. I think that would have been a little more palatable for me than to have the last 15 minutes of the game. Hinge my choice on the making the things I did kind of moot.
Sure.
It just felt that way. It just felt like all like
in the sense you mean in the sense that you had three choices that were the same no matter what, or that
it just felt like
the outcome.
This
the
entire
outcome
war was
to
to get this one man to the top floor. This is the penthouse. Like that's all it came down to. Like if we had found a shortcut that I could have warped in or crashed through a window, like we didn't have to even fight this war. We just got to hook the Crucible up and like jump inside, talk to this robot, or the AI kid, and like walk into a portal. Like Anderson didn't have to die. Then none of this stuff had to happen. This could have been like day one shit. Like it just, I don't know. It felt like it just made a lot of the suffering and casualties and horrors of war that they play up so much just seem like a side story.
The biggest thing I have a hard time coming to terms with about those choices is just how contrived the effects of each of them is. It's like, why is it that you can destroy the Reapers but you can't stop it from destroying the Geth and Edie? Like what?
This is the way it has to be.
Like, what philosophical statement are you, the writers, trying to make with this choice? Or are you just trying to make it tough for the player to pick one?
Yeah. Well, I think that's why in the original ending, at least, it seemed like they were all essentially there were bigger blankets being thrown. You're going to wipe out all AI.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Yep.
Well, all the mechanical shit's gone. You're going to take control. But like, can you control them?
Right.
Like that's another choice, or you're going to synthesis and everybody becomes robot machine. Like It just seemed like they were casting a wider net. I don't like when the mass relays blew up on each one. It seemed like that's the way it has to be. Instead, where if they're excluding Geth or anything like that, or not mentioning that part, it seems like maybe they're hedging their their finality a little bit.
Yeah.
But like I didn't mind that stuff. Again, I didn't mind it. It just seemed like 3 games worth of stuff just all boiled down to some weird choices.
The door number 1, number 2, number 3 stuff is pretty silly. I'd totally agree with you. But the existence of the kid didn't bother me at all because there was deep story justification for it.
I just go back to like the Genophage stuff. Like it was such a great story throughout all 3 games that I just felt like by my ending with the synthesis, I did not have to do any of that. Like all of that stuff was like I don't even know how robots can Krogan robots have kids. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
You see a Krogan robot baby in the extended cut.
Crobots.
And nobody likes the Crobots. Everybody likes the Croformers.
Well, you needed all their help to get you to that penthouse.
I guess. Did you?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's far from a perfect ending, but it is. But it is certainly a better game the way that I played it, and it's a real shame it didn't go out the door.
There's
a
sci-fi series which is actually really, really similar, where there's a very similar thing of like this AI controls the way people travel around the universe, and in the book, since it's not a choose your own adventure, they destroy the AI and they destroy all these gates, and the universe is fucked. They basically roll back to like medieval times. Whole planets die because they can't get food. Like that's the kind of consequence I think should be in store for destroying mass relays. Like and then you could pick up later on and be like Mass Effect 40,000 after Shepard,
yeah.
and it's like we're living in castles with laser guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thundar the Barbarian.
Yes. Anyway, are we done talking about Mass Effect? Should we let people tune back in?
Yeah, I think we're done.
That was a good 5 minutes.
That was a good,
Skip
hour
your
long, 5
playhead
minutes.
here.
Video